You do something great and then you come back and you go, we've got to raise the bar again.
In a major franchise like Thor, there's bound to be tears, some sweat, and quite a bit of overall pain.
It does become like a sport, and you're sweating and there's injuries and so on.
Number 1. Natalie Portman did many of her own stunts in Thor Love and Thunder, which meant she had to be strong. She shares a bit about her training regimen. I trained for a long time before and during, and I was doing the whole protein shake thing. It really helped prepare me for the level of action that we ended up doing. Even her costume was heavy. She needed a great deal of upper body strength just to wear it throughout the scene. The costume designer created a more comfortable, lightweight version for her to wear during breaks. Not only was it lighter, but the cape was also shortened, because it seems wearing capes caused a lot of problems for the actors, as they would often trip over them and get hit in the face during important moments. Number 2. Taika Waititi had his hands full as the director and the character Korg. He basically had to be in 2 places at once.
This is Taika performing Korg, but sometimes he's in the suit, the motion capture suit, whilst directing.
Sometimes he wasn't actually there, and the actors had to pretend he was. But most of the time, he was in full director mode while playing Korg at the same time.
The head, that's all there, and then it was attached to a stick.
And that stick was attached to his back. Essentially, his head was underneath Korg's. The costume itself was heavy and awkward, so walking around in it for long periods of time definitely proved to be challenging.
This thing here was attached on a harness, remember that? And I also had the camera thing to record my face.
Talk about elaborate. Number 3. Speaking of elaborate costumes, Christian Bale went through his own trials and tribulations behind the face of Gore the God Butcher. When he was first cast, he assumed Gore was going to be created with CGI, but then he saw the call sheet and noticed he had to come in 4 hours earlier than everyone else. His team of makeup artists got the process down to 3.5 hours, but that wasn't his only Gore-related issue.
And then it wasn't until a couple of weeks later I went, wait, what is this? Because I'm swallowing an awful lot of it.
Yeah, black bile. He often had a lot of it in his mouth while filming. Not only that, but Christian found himself pretty incapacitated because of Gore's long nails. He tells Deadline, "It affected my brain. I was like, I can't eat, I've got long nails. I was trying to type, I couldn't do anything." Number 4. Chris Hemsworth is no stranger to pushing his limits. But when training for both his 4th Thor movie and a biopic for Hulk Hogan, he pushed himself a little too hard. Though it's unclear exactly how it happened, he had to go see a specialist for his back. He opened up about the struggles he faced. "I found that after lifting weights for so long and not getting in touch with my fast twitch fibers, the snappiness that my body had has gone." Number 5. You'd be surprised how much effort went into making these screaming goats. They didn't bring any real goats on set for those guys though, because they modeled them to be the size of Clydesdale horses. It wouldn't have been useful anyway.
All real hair, all planted in, each hair is actually planted in by hand.
They had an entire team of makeup artists on deck for these goat scenes.
They'd run in with a glycerin spray and just so the tongue was extra wet for that kind of reference.
The only real goat they had on set was Devin, who played a space goat.
Let me tell you, Devin is insufferable.
Apparently, though very cute, he wasn't the easiest to work with because he loved eating all the props.
I keep trying to explain to Chris that Devin's not out to get him.
Number 6. At first glance, you might think being a stunt double is a pretty dangerous line of work. At first glance, you'd be absolutely right. Bobby Holland Hanton has doubled for Thor, James Bond, and Captain America. And although he is an absolute professional, he still receives a fair amount of serious injuries. He shares his most poignant on-set injury during Thor. "I snapped my groin off the bone on Thor Ragnarok, just doing a jumping flip kick to try and kick the Hulk in the Gladiator scene. The timing of my kick and the wire pull and me really trying to go for it, I hyperextended and snapped a bit of my adductor longus and rectus abdominis off the bone, which took a little while to heal." Number 7. The actors of this film describe their sequences as high-level child's play. For the first 3 days of Thor Love and Thunder, Christian Bale had to act with Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, and Tessa Thompson all gagged and silent. Christian had a tiny monologue that ended up being expanded, due to Taika Waititi's direction, to a massive monologue.
You were shouting things at me and I was coming up with stuff and acting I felt like a demented nun or something.
He had a really hard time with it because he thought he was doing the worst job ever. especially because no one could respond to him. It was definitely one of his least favorite moments, also given the fact that it was his first introduction to the cast.
None of that ended up in the film, so I think that must have been the answer. Yes, it was the worst thing.
Number 8. Definitely more awkward than you'd think. In Thor Ragnarok, in every scene that Mark Ruffalo, who plays the Hulk, performed, he was isolated in a completely different part of the set. That's how he performed all his Hulk scenes throughout the franchise, except for Thor Love and Thunder. We can thank incredible technological advancement for that.
I'm basically on one set swinging this big hammer around.
So that means when Chris did his fight scene with him, he was also shooting by himself. It can make for several awkward takes we hope to see one day.
I think I probably did more damage to myself, just kind of swinging the big thing around.
Number 9. That's what it felt like for Tessa Thompson anyway. One thing we tend to overlook about these superheroes is their ability to wear awkward capes while saving the world. Tessa found herself tripping over her cape and getting smacked in the face with it more often than she'd liked. She talks about her strife with Entertainment Tonight. You just trip on them and then the wind machine gets going and it smacks you in the face. So it felt like a quick boot camp in superhero-ness, and the sometimes adventurous positions you have to get yourself into to be able to, you know, pee in between takes. Number 10. Painful, but it looked great on camera.
Okay, well this is obviously not Tom. This is a stuntman.
So Tom Hiddleston's stunt double, Paul Lacavara, is strapped into a harness and a few guys in the background are holding onto his wires. When Chris throws him, he is pulled by the wires into the other men. Ouch.
Obviously actors are very valuable and we do not want to damage the actor.
Number 11. This isn't the first time Jaimie Alexander suffered an on-set injury. Unfortunately, the steps of her trailer were out to get her that day. She slipped, fell, and hurt her back pretty badly. She posted on Twitter, "I'm lucky I'm not paralyzed." Luckily, when it came to shooting Thor: The Dark World, they were able to work around her injury and continue shooting, all while giving her time to recover. Number 12. Who knew 3D cameras could pose such a problem? Marvel is famous for their post-credit scenes, but this one proved to be far more trouble than it was worth. Joss Whedon, who directed this scene, used it as a test to see whether or not they could shoot the Avengers with 3D cameras. The answer ended up being a hard no. Producer Jeremy Latcham explains, "It took so long to change a lens that it was truly awful. It was the longest day to shoot that tiny scene." Stellan Skarsgård, who was a major player in the film, said he didn't even want to be in it if it was shot on those cameras. Would you have known all of these injuries, mishaps, and awkward moments were happening behind the set of the Thor films? Let us know what you think in the comments.